All right, section 9, praetera, besides or in addition to. It's an adverb. And everything between this word, and let's go to the last word of the sentence, vivebamus, we were seeing. In addition, we were seeing, and everything in between is now indirect statement. So find our accusative subject. We were seeing that the sea, it goes with this passive infinitive, was being resorbed or pulled back upon itself. Quasi, as if it was driven back, the it being the sea, it is a neuter noun over here, by the tremor or the quake of the earth. So that'd be an ablative of means with a genitive for terrai. Certe is certainly the litus, the shoreline, had gone back. Or, sorry, not gone back, but more specifically gone out, proceeded. So it went further from where it normally was, as of course the water level pulled back from that. Multa animalia is going to be your direct object, many animals of the sea. And the verb that's governing the many animals of the sea is detenebat. And now you've got to look for what can be your singular subject. For that, you need to go back to litus, the shore. So the shore, detenebat, was holding back many animals, maris, of the sea. Then we have our ablative place where, on dry land. From the altero latere, from the other side. And then we're going to have our reference to the volcanic cloud, the nubes, black and horrifying, or dark and horrifying for atra. Those both modify the cloud, the nubes, nominatives. Rupta, having been broken. We might even be able to go so far as to translate this as having been sort of interrupted. It's going to be broken apart to a certain extent by volcanic lightning. And he's going to describe this in a way that I think will sort of help to understand a little bit better if we kind of jump to the end of this very, very long sentence. So these things that he's about to describe, which again, we would just refer to this more generally as volcanic lightning, these errant were greater, maiores, these flashes coming out of the volcano, and similar to lightning. And when I first translated this myself, I've kind of wished he had started with that statement so you could get a little bit clearer sense of what he's trying to describe. But keep that in your mind. So these things, the Eli, which is going to be these bolts, is how we're going to translate tortoise here. And that's going to be sort of the volcanic lightning. But down here, the Eli, these things, errant, are similes, similar, and maiores, greater to lightning. Okay, so let's go back to rupta in line 30. So that was describing the cloud having been broken or interrupted. And then our ablative of means in the line above that, line 29, tortoise, the bolts. Bolts of fiery breath. They're bolts of fiery breath vibrating or shaking and running around. So bolts vibrating and shaking, running around, bolts of a fiery breath. That's the ablative of means, going with rupta, having been broken by those things, that cloud that was atra and horrenda. Since the cloud is still our subject, will still be the subject of this verb, which we'll translate as it was being split open into long figures or shapes would be more suitable for this context, into long shapes of flames. And again, these things were similar and greater to lightning. Then, indeed, that man, Ile, from Spain, the friend of my uncle, I implied of my uncle, but the amicus, more harshly and more pressingly or urgently describing this uncle, he's going to speak. He says, Si fater tuus, if your father and, we're implying the and, your uncle, so remember he's addressing both Pliny and Pliny's mother, if your father and your uncle survives, he wishes you all, vos, it's a very brief indirect statement, to be saved. If he died, periit, he wished, and now we're going to repeat the exact same pattern. There's two words that are implied from the previous clause. So the previous clause, go back up one line, volt esse vos salvos. He wished that you be safe. And if he died, he wished, and then now you're going to imply the vos esse, that you be survivors. So we're going to imply that, modifying the vos from the previous line as a re-implied in this particular clause. From here, proinde, or therefore, consequently, at what do you delay to escape? That's kind of the good literal way to do it. At what, or for what reason, do you delay to escape? In other words, why haven't you gotten out of here already? We responded, and this is going to set up an indirect statement. Our subject of the indirect statement is nos. So we're going to say we responded that we, and then we just simply have our future active infinitive. We don't see this very often. That's the whole indirect statement before we get a follow-up subjunctive clause. So when we add that implied esse with this future active form, that we would not begin, or that we would not arrange or bring it about. We can translate it either of those ways. So it's a future active infinitive. And then we would have the result. There would not bring it about, so that concerning the uncertain safety of the uncle, Ilias would be referring to who they're concerned about, we would consult or consider for ours, nostri. And of course, what this is referring to, ours, our safety. So concerning the safety uncertain of the uncle, we would we would consult for ours. And the negation to this, remember, is in the outside clause. The end of the previous line is the non, going with the future active infinitive. So we would not begin to bring it about, so that we would consider for our safety, sort of while his safety is uncertain. We could probably, at least a little bit more loosely translate the preposition de as while.